All right, now notice what he does here too. All right, when he starts to claim his healing, and this is where I have an issue or a problem. All right, is that he starts quote confessing it out loud.
Hmm.
Believing that he's healed. All right, he really doesn't. Um, it's like he is dependent upon his confession, not necessarily a prayer of asking God, to heal him. He sees that verse, and now it's going to be dependent upon his confession. And the
Right.
thing of it is, in when you look at the scriptures, and especially the New Testament, and look at the ministry of Jesus, nobody ever said they were healed before they were actually healed. I mean,
Yeah.
I know they try to use the woman with the issue of blood, and we can get into that one if you want to, because it's like that's not what she said. I mean, she said ahead of time, but if I could just touch the hem of his garment, her faith was directed towards Jesus. She believed that if she touched Jesus, in other words, her faith had an object to it. It was Jesus. And Jesus
Right.
said her faith had made her whole. It wasn't the power of her faith in a sense of a mystical force of faith. It was like she had the right object in mind, that if she could touch Jesus, if she could reach him, she could be healed. But it wasn't because of this mysterious force of faith, and that's something we'll get into later on in another session. Because they teach faith as being some sort of force, and it's like I say, they have their, again, they look at the words and everything. And speaking of that, Hagin there's one of those little bitty books called Words, and I just want to read one little section because this is typical of what we're talking about. This is from page 5 of his, and this is the ebook edition. It's called Words, and it says 45 years have come and gone, and I haven't had a headache, not one. The last headache I can actually remember having was in August 1933. I haven't had a headache, and I'm not expecting to have one. But if I had a headache, I wouldn't tell anybody. And if somebody should ask me how I was feeling, I would say, I'm fine, thank you. Now, that in a nutshell is, right, is what we're talking about. This
Yeah.
is where you can deny reality and say, this is what I'm believing. It's like this is a strange dichotomy, that you're creating here. So
Yeah.
if,
You
go ahead if
know,
you want to comment
it's
on that.
it's funny. My pastor at the Word of Faith church that I went to,
Mm-hmm.
he would say that. So where I live here in New Mexico, there's a lot of dust. There's
Mm-hmm.
allergies. Just about
Mm-hmm.
everybody has allergies,
Mm-hmm.
and the
Mm-hmm.
wind blows and stuff. He would talk about how he don't get allergies. He don't get headaches and all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's sad. It's
Mm-hmm.
really sad.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He in the time that I knew him, and I went there for um about 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
I started when I was right about 16 and went through till I was like 26.
Mm-hmm.
He he had to start wearing glasses.
Mm-hmm.
He had false teeth. Now I believe this was because of got him knocked out by a horse or something, you know.
Mm. Mm.
It wasn't just that they fell out or that.
Yeah,
It was there
gotcha.
was a cause to it.
Oh boy. Mm.
He had false teeth.
Mm-hmm.
Now he was only in his 50s. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
He was like in his 40s when I met him.
Mm-hmm.
He he had to have some sort of like tumor growth removed from his neck, like a
Mm-hmm.
gland.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um and at I believe he was 56, he died of stomach cancer.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
And
Oh man.
all this time he just kept telling himself that
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
this was the right way, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. The other thing too, see, and I know at Rhema they will tell you, not, you could get in trouble if you tell people not to go to a doctor or whatever. They will
Right.
tell people that they don't, because they know they could get into legal trouble if they
Right.
did do that. But by their actual teachings that they do, they lead people to not do that. And sadly, too many people have gone to an early grave by confessing just like
Right.
this. Now this Hagin here is just talking about a headache, but it's like what you mentioned with this guy. There's more serious conditions, and you keep doing that, and you're denying reality. Now
Yeah.
this is borderline. I mean, this is where it mixes with Christian Science. This is why this is such a heresy, because it's just like, you're not, nowhere in the Bible does it tell you to deny reality. You're not
Right.
supposed to deny that. You can say, in one general sense, that you're believing God, and hoping that God will heal you, type of thing. But to
Right.
say that you're healed when you're really not healed, you're lying. You're lying
Yeah.
to yourself. Number one, I mean, if you're pretending that you're healed when your body really isn't healed, that's very dangerous. And the more serious the situation, the more dangerous it is.
Yeah.
And there's way too many people have gone to an early grave. Now I know the Hagin people and a lot of Word of Faith people. Well, we didn't tell them not to go to a doctor, and we encouraged them to go to a doctor. Okay, fine. But the way the teachings come across, I mean, there's several times where I've read in Kenneth Hagin's books, and I remember him saying this. He said, "I've done everything. I did everything I could do to stand, and I stood." Well, there's one
Yeah.
where he says, "I literally stood on the Bible."
Yeah.
And so they're telling you to stand no matter what happens. No matter what happens to you, and don't believe those lying symptoms. Believe the Word of God.
One of the big things, and I guess he got this from Hagin.
Mm-hmm.
One of the big things he would say is, um, I don't ask my body how I feel. I tell my body how it feels.
Yeah. 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 Yep. Yep. Indeed. And it's like I say. This is again. I believe in asking God. For healing. I believe God heals and all that. But I also don't believe the Bible teaches us that we hide symptoms, or we ignore it to the point of to where we're confessing something that's not true. I don't believe the
Right.
Bible teaches that at all. This goes back to some of the origins. This goes back to Phineas Quimby. This goes back to Mary Baker Eddy. These
Yeah.
go. This goes back a ways. And I know, even Hagin. There's one deal. He says, "Well, I know what I teach sounds a little bit like Christian Science, but it's different." And of course, I know the Hagin defenders out there. Well, it's not Christian Science. You
Yeah.
don't even go down that road. It's like, well, yeah, it sort of really is. And it's like, I don't care what you say, it's heretical.
Yeah.
This isn't the Word of God. This is not what God teaches. And to deny that reality. And yeah, that's not true.
Going back to um the whole idea of like, they don't necessarily tell you stop going to the doctor and stuff like
Hmm.
this.
Yes.
But they put that guilt on you,
Yes.
like you need to step out in faith and just do this.
Yes.
Okay. Now,
Absolutely.
now
Yes.
I'll tell you this. I was real overweight, especially due to my size and stuff because of my birth defect and all of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I had sleep apnea. Okay.
Oh boy.
And they did a sleep study on me and all of this. They couldn't even my oxygen dropped so low they couldn't even measure it. Okay.
Wow. Wow.
So they put me on oxygen and they put me
Mm-hmm.
on
Mm-hmm.
a CPAP or a
Mm-hmm.
BiPAP machine.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
Mm.
this was when those things were just first starting to come out.
Mm-hmm.
This was
Mm-hmm.
so uncomfortable. It was
Oh,
so miserable. It would
I was gonna
cause
say, I don't think I could
sores.
sleep with one on my face. So go ahead.
Yeah, it would cause sores on my face and all of
Mm.
this.
Mm. Mm.
And one Sunday, this was at that Word of Faith church. The pastor is preaching and all of this, and they do an altar call, and he says somebody has a problem with their lungs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Before I even really thought about it, I was going up there,
Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and God healed me.
Yes. Praise
I
the Lord.
stopped. I
Mm-hmm.
stopped. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't I didn't go to the doctor right away. I stopped that night. I
Wow.
stopped using the machine. Okay.
Wow. Wow.
I don't recommend this for people, but this is
No.
what I felt like I needed to do.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Individual
So,
case. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
so I felt,
Mm-hmm.
I literally felt my lungs expand when they prayed for me.
Yes. Yeah.
I've been in the
But
hospital since and things like this, and never has there been a mention of my oxygen level dropping when I sleep or
mm-hmm.
anything like that. I think I started the machine when I was like 12. I got off of it like around 16, 17, something like that. I used them for a long time, okay,
Mm-hmm.
every night.
Mm-hmm.
So I stopped using it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So then when I was around 30, my kidneys fail. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If I were to stop, if I
Mm-hmm.
were to stand in faith and just stop doing dialysis, I would be
Yes.
dead within a couple of weeks. I have to
Yeah.
do dialysis twice a
Yes.
week
Yes.
to
Mm-hmm.
clean my
Yeah.
blood.
Yes.
And so it's like sometimes God heals and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes he uses medicine and things like
Yeah.
this.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
that's his
Amen.
call.
Yes.
That's his call.
Yeah. And the thing with it is you don't get off the medicine until you have the manifestation.
Right.
That's the point, which is when you're confessing that you're healed.
Right.
But if you go, you're denying reality, and if you go off the medicine or whatever by confession, you can be in serious trouble, as you just mentioned. In your case, absolutely,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. And sometimes the way Word of Faith is taught, it's almost like, yeah, but you got to take, like you said earlier, you got to take that step out in faith,
Right.
and that can be deadly for folks,
Yeah.
absolutely. Hagin's book, Right and Wrong Thinking, he quotes T.L. Osborne, and T.L. Osborne in his book, Healing the Sick, said, confessing pains, aches, and diseases is like signing for a package that the express company has delivered. Satan then has the receipt, your confession from you, showing
Right.
that you have accepted this package. And he says, do not accept anything sent by the devil. Well, his wife died of cancer. Did she sign for a receipt somewhere with her confession? Makes you
Right.
wonder.
You mentioned the story of the woman with the issue of blood.
Yes.
In that
Mm-hmm.
story, it talks about that
Mm-hmm.
for 12 years,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
she had continually went to doctors
Yes. Mm-hmm.
and none of
Yes.
them could heal her. Now,
No. No.
when she is healed and
Yes.
Jesus confronts her, you
Yes.
notice he doesn't rebuke her
No.
for going to
Exactly.
the doctors.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
He doesn't tell her, well, if you would have stopped going to the doctors 12 years ago, you would have already got your healing.
Yes. Absolutely. Yes. The other thing too that I'll just mention this just as a side passing, which is that in Judaism she was considered ceremonially unclean.
Right.
And if she was wrong and touched him, he would have been unclean. But look
Right.
what happens. He makes her, clean. And
Right.
she doesn't affect him. He affects her. So so
Yeah.
at any rate,
Because that's what God does.
Yes, yes,
He
yes,
changes us.
yes, exactly.